This is how you normally see a captain, but today I'm here as a man, not as a captain, so I will put this on the chair here. I will try to take you on a small journey inside my head and my colleagues too. So I want all of you to start with to close your eyes and try to transport yourself to the Caribbean Sea. Not the azure blue sea you're used to, but a grey one, a dark one with lots of clouds, on board a small cruise ship. It's a very cloudy morning and the air is strangely electrically charged with something dangerous. Completely still, and the sea is like a mirror, oily calm. It's the still before the storm. A gigantic wall of rain is coming towards the ship. It's 1979. Hurricane David is coming. It's the deadliest hurricane since 1834, leaving over 2,000 dead, 400,000 evacuated, and more than 2.5 million people without electricity or water. As a young man, I was on board this cruise ship in the middle of this horrible Class 5 hurricane. And even if many storms and hurricanes has passed by since then, most recently Irma, Jose, Katia, and Maria, among the greatest fear any seaman has is to end up in the middle of a monster storm like this. Being a ship captain and a human being, fear is something that affects me every day. And in order to talk about how seamen, or any one of us for that matter, react when we go beyond fear, I will need to talk about fear in general first. Fear is the fight or flight response to our minds react to a possible dangerous, ongoing situation or a future situation with ourselves as the main person. It is 2 steps beyond being scared. After scared comes afraid, and then comes fear. People get scared or afraid of many things in life, from past events, from smells, sounds, sudden movements, or something we see or even feel. We are afraid from the time we were small children. I used to have nightmares about a lion that would eat me up. That's not a very big problem in Sweden, where the poor bugger would probably freeze to death before he had me for lunch. Or I was afraid of falling down from a skyscraper, and I always woke up either in my bed or just after I fell out of it, but it felt like 40 floors. As we grow up, we are afraid of other things. If not making it in life, how we perform at work, not being loved or even successful. We are afraid of not having enough money to make ends meet, or losing our job. In order to be scared of something, we must learn to fear it. To fall down, to drown, to burn, to be hurt. The more we know about something, the more we will know the consequences if something does go wrong. For me as a captain and my crew, to have a fire on board, capsize, collision, pirates, or to go aground. But as a person, I think about my family. Are they well? My kids, are they healthy and happy? Is school, work going well, or do they have friends? Are my wife or her parents okay? What if someone dies when we're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, or gets sick or badly hurt? These are some of my everyday fears on board a ship. A ship, is a very isolated human outpost. The majority of the world's fleet still have no internet. Imagine a small village of about 20 to 30 people out in the South Pole, normally only men. We can't go to the movies, to the mall, to the supermarket, or the beach. We work, read books, watch videos, and speak to the family if we do have internet. If we don't have internet, we call home once a week for about 10 euros a minute. Or maybe we have a short conversation over a scratchy public radio that everyone else can listen into. That isolated outpost, the ship, just to be there also creates personal fear, like being afraid of not being accepted on board, to do some mistake or to die without being able to see the kids or the family again. We as humans, all of you and all of us seamen, we deal with our fears every day. But when we are on board a ship, we can't call the police, the fire department, or go to the doctor. If we have an emergency, we have to deal with it ourselves. So if we are scared of big storms, fire, and many other things, how do we make sure we can meet that day if it ever comes? So all seamen train on different scenarios. All officers have courses, many courses, and we learn from the first time we set foot on deck as a young crew member to think ahead, to try to see dangers before they come. We go to courses ashore and we use the team on board as one unit. So how do we react when the unthinkable happens? How we react on a personal level is mostly depending on two factors: our ability to fantasize and our knowledge of facts. If the fantasizing part takes over, our reptile brain will trigger a hormonal shower of adrenaline and rule our actions in response to what our fantasy creates: panic, horror, even freeze or paralysis. Some people have it in them to flee no matter what the consequences. They will hide in a closet or even jump out of an open window during a fire without understanding that there are normally ways to survive even in such difficult places. Some very few people, they just give up. Sit down, cry, lose all will to live and fight. But most people conquer their fear, keep their heads cold, and many times they do find a way out. Most of them have the same feeling during this worst moment. They know they could well die, but then there's no way out. But they deal with it. How? In a few cases, it's a natural ability. Some people just won't get panicked. But mainly it's done by cognition, which is to say our knowledge, experiences, understanding, and training. The less new a situation it is, the more familiar it is. And the less chance it is that you will lose control over it. Airplane pilots' biggest fear is to lose control over their airplane in mid-air. Yet when one listens to nearly all black box conversations or recordings, they continue to try to save their airplane until they are down in the ground or in the water. If you remember the landing on Hudson River a few years ago in New York, the plane was hit by birds and they lost both engines. The last words the captain said to his colleagues was, "Any other suggestions, co-pilot?" And they then landed and everybody survived in this case. So ship captains and our crews have the same problem as airplane pilots. We are both stuck in a little tube of metal and only we can solve the problem at hand. Training, experience. These are key words to be able to go beyond fear and stay focused. When we repeatedly train on some procedure or are exposed to a dangerous environment, like a storm or being on the ocean during a big ship, we get used to it. We learn how the ship reacts. We learn from older captains and colleagues how to handle the ship safely. We train on firefighting, lifeboat drills, and pirate attacks. All of this we have to know. But there are two more items, and in my opinion, the most important of all. Never lose faith and hope. If there is hope, there is a way. If there is faith, there is belief. And without hope and faith, nothing can work. When we are inside of a hurricane, it is very hard to explain to people ashore the incredible forces we are exposed to, even during a normal-sized storm. The ships I command, they are 300 meters long and about 50 meters wide. The distance from the water to the wheelhouse where we control the ship is about 50 meters. It's a very big ship. It's more than 100,000 tons. The engine is about 40,000 horsepower, and we can do speeds in calm seas over 20 knots. That's about 40 kilometers per hour, but it's fast for a ship. One would think that such a giant ship could not move so much, but it moves. It moves much more than you can imagine. It does. A normal storm in the Atlantic Ocean will produce about 10 to 12 meter high waves. A severe storm about 12 to 15 meters. And I go through these storms once or a couple of times a year. So statistically, I have 40 years at sea. I have about 40 to 60 storms and about 5 to 6 hurricanes or cyclones during my career. During such storms, I have very big respect for the waves and the wind. We make sure we don't get run over by the waves. We keep the ship against the sea and slow the speed and wait for the storm to pass. But sometimes, those 5 or 6 times, we encounter that hurricane that we really fear, with wind speeds up to more than a double of a normal storm, or actually triple or 4 times, and more than sometimes double hurricane force, with waves that I really fear. The force is so great that I understand when Mother Nature wants, they can break my ship like a dry twig in the wind, if she's mishandled, even if these ships are very strongly built. Waves are, like I said, up to 15 meters in a normal storm, but the waves I'm talking about now, they're about from 16 to 26 meters, something like this. It's not only the height of the waves that we have to think of, it's also the length between the wave crests, the horizontal wave there. Normal storms about 40 to 80 meters between the crests. These monsters have 80 to about 4, maybe 500 meters. It means that these incredibly steep waves break over the ship, and when several hundreds or even thousands of tons enters the deck, it breaks things, even rip big hatches off the ship, crush windows, not to mention hurl people on deck overboard like an ant flushed away in a torrential rain. Then I too get scared, really scared. Scared for my crew and the safety of my ship. Some, maybe 1 or 2 of us on board, may then succumb to fear and break down and stop working. They just wait for the ship they think they will break up, and they call Mother or even God. It's then that I realize the burden and the duty to be a sea captain. It enters my body. And I realize that I'm responsible for this little world of mine, for all the lives on board, and for their families to see them safely back home again. There's nothing I can do about the size of the waves or the strength of the wind. So I look at the sea surrounding my great 300-meter ship, now reduced to a small metal cork flung around like the leaf in the autumn wind. And I understand that we are just tiny little beings without meaning, and that there's a big possibility that we may go under if I don't control the movements of the ship. I see that there are powers so much bigger than us, and that there must be a God up there to guard over us. So then, with all my fear inside, I go to that place where I pass beyond fear. When my training, experience, seamanship, faith, and hope takes over. So I get filled with a very strange kind of peace. I get calm and determined to get my ship safely through, to our dear ones, and to do whatever it takes to get us home. I do the only thing I can do. I reduce speed, I put the bow into the waves, and as much as possible control the movements of the vessel to ride the hurricane out. I know that most of my crew are with me, and they do their utmost to keep the engine going, to keep lookout, serve food, if that's possible in that weather. The engineers, and especially the chief engineer, must keep the engine running, for without it I cannot maneuver. Sometimes the propeller comes completely out of the water, and they have to be fast to assist me so the engine doesn't stop. So I then stay at the controls of the ship, of the wheel, of the rudder, the engine, on the bridge until we are through. I put my complete experience, mind, heart and soul to one single thing, how to best get her up over that next wave, and then down to the bottom of the wave and up again. Time after time, wave by wave, for minutes, hours, and sometimes actually days. No sleep, no rest, just that next wave. Sooner or later the wind will decrease, the waves will diminish, the storm will cease, and calm seas will pass my bows again, under a cloud-free sky with a big cheesy moon as cover. Then, when the dolphins are happily jumping at the bow in an azure blue sea again, we feel gratitude to our ship, to each other, to be alive and to breathe. And the air is so sweet and fresh to us then, and just maybe we make a short call to our families just to say we love them. So I have this life poem that I heard many years ago, and I would like to share it with you because I think it's not only for seamen or people at sea, it goes for us all. The burden of sea captains, the burden of fathers, the burden of men, the burden of everyone. You can't run from the wind. You trim your sails, face the music, and keep on going. Thank you.